So I'm Steve Ludwig. I am otherwise known as Mr. Insurance, kind of an alter ego sort of thing. And I own Select Insurance Group, and that's kind of my claim to fame with that. And I've been in the insurance business for over 2 decades now, going on 23 years this year. And yeah, I mean, I started out kind of by accident. I was in a serious car accident, almost killed in the car accident. And like I said, I was supposed to be playing pro ball, and that God had other plans for me. I'm happy that it happened the way that it did. At the time, I didn't like that, but it ended up, I had a wealthy neighbor that drove a nice car, had nice watches, things like that. I knew he did really well for himself. And I said, "Hey, how do you do that? What do you do?" And he said, "Hey, come to this, basically dog and pony show. Come check it out for an opportunity meeting, whatever, AKA, like I said, a dog and pony show." And I was pretty much hooked from that point forward. I'm like, I knew I could sell and I had unlimited income potential. So I went all in, man. I started with my grandmother had given me $150 for my birthday, and I went to Rent-A-Center because I didn't have any credit. I didn't have bad credit. It's just, I went to Rent-A-Center, and at the time, Rent-A-Center, they had a deal that like you paid for so many weeks and then they would match that. So this one happened to be where it was 3 weeks and it was $50 a week, which I think in retrospect, I think I probably paid about 10 times the amount for that computer, but it served the purpose for what it needed to. I ran quotes on that computer, and that's how I was able to run and, perform my business so I could make money. So I had 3 weeks plus another 3 weeks that they were going to match. So I had 6 weeks to figure out how I was going to be able to make enough money to cover anything in week 7 and beyond. And by the time we hadn't even gotten to 6 weeks, the thing was paid off. I had sold so much insurance, and I was out there just going gangbusters to where, like I said, I mean, I quickly rose up through the rankings on things. And anything that was up for grabs, any kind of contest or everything, like I said, I was telling you out there, I'm like, I would have stuff taped to my steering wheel. I'd put it on my windshield and, put it in front of me so I could see what my goal was, and it never left my sight.
Do you still do that now?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I still do.
Is there something that you want right now? Is it a car or anything like that?
It's actually a boat that I want right now. And basically it's a 52-foot Sunseeker, right? And I know exactly like what it looks like, how I'm going to walk into my backyard, like how it's going to feel as I'm like walking up to it and everything. And I literally visualize this to the point of where it feels real. And I know I'll have it. And my due date on that is by the end of this year.
I love it. Will you bring that boat to the Lake of the Ozarks or?
So we had one at the Ozarks, and we actually sold that during the time again I had bought real well down there and boat included. So we ended up selling. It was during the height of that market. I basically almost quadrupled what I paid for that place within 2 years. Like literally the contract was dated to the point of like 2 years to the day, so that I wasn't going to end up paying more than I needed to for the capital gains. And, I took what I made there, and I invested it into other places to be able to do well with that. But one of the things that we did realize with this is that we have a lot of really great memories. And with those kids, that is something that you really can't put a price on. And it's something we missed a lot. So we've been sold from there about maybe a little over a year. And it's something that like I went back and forth on, but the main reason why I decided to get rid of it is because I couldn't rent it. And there was this lady, Carol, of all the names, I swear to God, that was what her name was, right? So she would go through and she would patrol to make sure that nobody was renting anything out. And she definitely let me know that, she would be letting the HOA know if I was going to rent it out to anybody or something. Like there's times friends went down there or whatever without us, and she'd be knocking on the door, making sure everything was good, and no partying, nothing like that. It was just time to be able to move on. But it was something I really missed, and it's something that we're wanting to take our talents down to South Beach.
I love it.
So
Carol and Karen, that's how you gotta stay away from them.
it's for sure. My wife gives me a hard time because I'm the president of our HOA, and she says that I'm like the chief Karen of the neighborhood on that. But like that was another thing. I wanted to be able to kind of live on my own terms with that, and I wanted other people to enjoy where they lived at because they worked hard to get there, and I felt like the rules were just too much. And so we lightened up a little bit, little things like if you can't see it, we're not really going to mess with you on it. Some people, they have RVs or whatever, but you couldn't see it. It's way back in the background or wherever. And they would say, no, you can't store it there. And I was like, it's not hurting nobody and we can't see it. What's the problem there?
Right, of course. That's why you got to stay away from neighborhoods.
Right.
Stay away from the HOA.
We're getting there to a point where we're almost not in a neighborhood, but yeah, we're out there in about 5 acres.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm actually not too terribly far from here.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't even know that you lived out here.
Yeah, I'm over off of Highway P.
Oh, I am too.
So it's off of Bastine.
Do you live next to close to Lindsay?
I don't know where she lives at.
She lives a neighborhood over from Stone Castle. She probably doesn't want me saying that.
No, that's all right. So we actually we live right in front of a lot of people. Our house and our street has been widely advertised. There was a company that was big into warranties out here in the Wentzville area. And the two brothers ended up building these like monstrous houses. One was in Lake St. Louis. The one was in Wentzville.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the one in Wentzville is literally in my backyard.
Okay.
So it's a very well known and advertised when you start talking. We live off of Bless Us Drive.
Right.
Okay. So it's not hard to forget.
I live off Highway P as well, but I live closer to North Main. So the other side of P.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a growing area. It's great. Like I said, I mean, I'm born and raised in St. Louis, so it's something that will always be a part of me, but eventually kind of the final place for us, we're going down south.
Same here. That's the goal. But we just had a baby. We should have been there by now. I was going to move to Fort Lauderdale, and then next thing you know, we were having a baby, so that kind of held things off for a little bit. And the family doesn't want us to go, so.
Yeah, we want to be in like Aventura, Boca Raton, kind of very similar, Fort Lauderdale, that kind of thing. It's like nice enough, but you don't catch the craziness of all the riffraff down in Miami. It's just, kind of a crazy scenario situation down there. So,
do you know where Wellington is?
Yeah.
Yeah. My buddy, he lives in Wellington, and I went out to his place, and I honestly was thinking about him like a couple minutes ago because he kind of was the one that taught me about manifesting, right? He would talk about how he'd go to the Lamborghini dealership and look inside, and he could feel the steering wheel, and that kind of sounds like a little bit of what you were doing with putting the pictures on the steering wheel or your mirror or wherever just to manifest.
It used to be so bad with my manifestations that I would literally tell people that I owned it, and I learned the difference between visions and reality and fibs and everything else, but I would literally visualize it so hard to the point of like where I actually felt like I already had it. Like I knew I was going to get to that goal. I knew I was going to get to that end. Even the house that we're in right now, at the time, I probably shouldn't have gotten that loan. I mean, God bless the gentleman that helped me to be able to get into that house. He has a mortgage company here in St. Louis, and his wife's in real estate, and they tag team and put it together. But I know that was probably like a special favor call that was made on this gentleman's behalf, because I wasn't meant to be there, and apparently, I was meant to be there. But I mean, it definitely, I was putting down kind of the bare minimum sort of thing, and it was a desirable area, and it had a lot of really great perks. We put a ton into that house. We redid the entire front of the house, and I had a vision board of how that was going to look. And I have the vision board, and now that vision board looks exactly how it is now. But we did this big renovation. Something that I do want to talk about with that. So in that renovation, right, I hired a friend of mine to be able to do the driveway, right, to do the concrete and everything. And we came up with an agreement and, the scope of work and, the whole 9 yards with that. And the guy put in a driveway, did a great job and everything else. And at the end of it, he said, I didn't really charge you enough money. So I need you to pay this extra amount. And I was like, well, it's in the scope of work. So, I don't know what to tell you. He was like, well, I'm seeing you drive around in this, and you clearly are not hurting for a paycheck. And, and I'm out here, stomping around in a bunch of concrete to help you out. And this is a guy that I helped out like when I didn't really have much. And it ended up, he went out online and he blasted me out online saying like, tell this bum to pay his bill. This is, I had all these people that were like messaging me, sending me threats and things like that, because this guy tried to be able to take advantage of me. And this is somebody who, again, I thought was my buddy, my pal, my friend, somebody that came to like my kids' birthdays, somebody that knew my intimate situations and plastered all of my kids' pictures, my wife, myself, our possessions and things that we had all over, not to mention our address. A couple months later, we had a couple cars stolen. And I still, to this day, believe that maybe there was something to do with a part of that somebody saw what we had. And, that's the reason why, like, when people become successful, they become very guarded. I mean, I think I was reading something about, what is it, the Facebook owner, Zuckerberg, right? That he spends something like $28 million a year or something like that on security. Well, I'm sure that, like, you've probably really pissed some people off. Now, that guy, I mean, I've heard stories of how that went down. But, I mean, if you really think about it, I mean, the guy's a multi-billionaire. I mean, maybe 28 million ain't so bad every year to be able to have some security to have lunch with you and stuff. But that's essentially kind of like you start developing an army of lookers that cast judgment over you. And it's one of the most difficult things that I know that I personally dealt with it. It's happened within my family. It's happened within my friends. I don't know how many relationships that I've had to, essentially get rid of because of jealousy or envy. And I would even say entitlement is a big part of that as well. People will, especially if they like kind of came up with you at the same time, it's like they feel like they should be on that same level. And it's, something that it's just very much a reality. And pretty much anybody that's ever been successful has gone through where somebody has cast, the crooked eye at them and said, what can you do for me? And you didn't deserve to be there. I deserve to be there. And, I was really hurt. I was really torn up about that. I mean, still to this day, like we don't talk or anything like that. It's something that I will never forget. And it was something that really, caused a lot of problems for me in business, within my marriage, with my kids and things like these parents, at school and, and you're out online and everything, and you're supposed to be this power of example out there. And then you got somebody saying like, quit being a bum and pay your bill, and this guy,
and that negativity carries more than positivity.
100%. And, the other thing that somebody had said to me was that, like you were saying, the negativity, it's definitely a lot stronger. But you also have where that a person that isn't happy, you're never going to be able to make them happy, no matter what you do. Either people are going to encourage you, push you, support you, genuinely try to be able to help to, enrich your life, or they're going to be the complete opposite of that. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are close to us that they're frenemies. It's sad.
Right. Yeah, yeah. It's worse than you even think, you know?
Well, that's the reason why it's said to, you pick your squad or your crowd to hang out with, because your surroundings of the people around you, like, I want to be around people that inspire me, that push me to work harder. Like, we were just talking about Michael, right? He's our jeweler, and he puts me around guys that made me step my game up, and he knew what he was doing, and that's okay. I'm not mad at him for that, and but he forced me to up my game, to come up to where what my potential was, and then some, and continues to keep challenging me. And my good friends, that's what they should be doing, and that's what I should be doing for them as well. Not letting them get away with just being ordinary. I would say my daughter is probably the absolute best when it comes to that. Like, we went and we flew down to Miami, right? We ended up flying down there, and she was like, "Why are we sitting back here? We should be sitting in the front of the plane." And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, and she was like, "This is completely unacceptable." She's like, "They don't serve food back here. There's no drinks. There's no, this." And she was like, "You know what? It should be like a standard that you set for yourself, that you should not allow yourself to accept anything less than this." And it's the same thing when it comes to pretty much anything with that. Is like, she does not let me get away with just trying to be able to skate around the normal. And I'm really thankful for that. My kid I've rubbed off on her to the point of where she's now, the student has become the teacher, and she's like, "Hey, you need to be flying private. You need to, like, I don't want to go through security anymore."
She's keeping you in check.
Yeah.
When we were having a conversation out there, and you kind of pulled up my shirt. You said, "What is that, a Citizen?" I'm like, "Man, what a dig. What a dig. I need a rollie."
Yeah.
But I want to go back to kind of what you were talking about. That guy, he saw the fancy stuff. You had the house, the cars, that sort of thing. For me, I bought my Huracan the last, I think, March 28th or something like that. So I bought the Lambo. I put it on social media, of course. I get a few 100,000 views within the first 2 days of me owning that car.
Well, I knew you bought it because you called me to help you out with it.
And I want to get into that as well. But so I bought this car. I put it on social media. Right, gets tons of views. My Instagram got deleted at like 72,000 followers within 2 days of me owning that car. And I guarantee you it was because of me posting about that car, and all my business was reliant on Instagram at the time.
Oh boy.
And I lost $300,000 basically 2 days after. My business declined 98% overnight just because of that Instagram, got taken down. And I guarantee you it was something related to, me posting about the Huracan. And the more I've drove around in that car, the more I've posted stuff. It's like, the more it makes me ask myself if I want to continue to post stuff about the car.
Yeah.
Because people will just keep hating and hating and hating.
That's really like, that's the, it's like the two magnets coming together, right? And like it's like the energy that pushes away. Like, that those two belong together, but like that energy keeps pushing it away from each other because it's a negative energy. The thing is that there's always going to be people out there that have a judgment that they're going to cast on you. And those are unhappy people, and they're not going to ever change. They're going to always be stuck in the same single place, but you can't change your life and start adapting to them. They need to be changing their life and adapting to you. The car is really just a byproduct of what it does, right? So a lot of people don't understand, like, I've developed some of the most amazing relationships. So let me tell you real quick, a quick story on here, right? And I'm going to show you some pictures just to drive the point on here, right? So I had gone in and I had bought my very first, it was a 488. It was red. And So, you know, it was a great day, sun shining, everything. And, you know, I picked it up. Here's my kids that are in front of it.
Love
Here's
it.
the keys and the engine. There's the keys. It was a great day, right? Keep watching. 7 minutes after I drove off the lot, my brakes went out and I lost control of the car and I smashed it into a guardrail and completely flipped the car around, everything else. Like you can see,
Wow.
here's
Yeah,
a temp
dealer
tag on
plates.
there,
Yep.
right? So this thing within minutes, I'm thinking this is the worst day ever. And it actually ended up being the biggest blessing. And let me tell you why, because I turned that negative into a positive. What I didn't realize in that moment is that a person now, they started looking me up being like, well, what does this guy do that he can be able to get one of those kind of cars? And yes, there's people driving by and, you know, they're taking video and it went out on Instagram and it literally went viral across like every car club in America.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having people text, dude, is this you? Oh my gosh, learn to drive, pal. You know, I had a friend of mine that sent me these shoes. One says gas, one says brake on there. And he was like, the next time you know which is which on that. You know, my friends are busting me over this stuff, right? They're just trying to, you know, make light of the scenario. But this ended up within 6 months, I had sold $1.3 million of commissionable insurance because people were like, oh, well, he's been through it. He kind of understands. Like, I couldn't get insurance, man. I had just had cars stolen. Now I wrecked this thing within 7 minutes. Another thing was, too, is that I learned something in this scenario as well. Is like, it could have been where it went really, really bad because I had a VIP status in the insurance market. So I was able to get the car approved right away for the value that it was. But when in normal circumstances, they'll get like that temporary insurance and the binder and everything else, but they're only covered up to $150,000. Where would that leave you leaving the dealership with your Lamborghini?
Right. Screwed.
You're in a bad spot. It's a bad day. So a bad day just became even worse. And that was when I realized, I'm like, you know what? I kind of have this duty to be able to make sure that people don't land in this situation. And I figured out my way along the way of what I was going to do and how I was going to do it. And I got insurance and took care of things. And I ended up getting a new one, you know, and that was great. But I'll tell you what, you know, like I said, those people that were commenting, that were chatting on the side, you know, like, learn to drive, dude. You know, like, look at this fool out here and, you know, like RIP to the Ferrari and all that. Those people, they could never own something like this.
Yeah, what do they drive?
Right.
What color is their Ferrari?
I had this kid that was like, he was just relentless. I'll never forget this Ethan kid, right? He was just freaking relentless on that page. And he just kept going and going and going and going and going. I found I was like, you know what? I was like, when's the last time you crashed your Ferrari? Oh, now it's silent. Right. Because you just hushed the hater. You know what I mean? And this was... I thought it was a terrible day, but it's a story that I tell when I go and I speak at some of these events. I talk about the 7-minute Ferrari that made me $1.3 million in 6 months.
Could you imagine if you had like Select Insurance on your
right
wrapped on the side of it?
Would have probably been a good day for that, right? Maybe
Yeah.
It would have been more. But, you know, the bigger thing is with this is I met one of my absolute best friends through this. He was a tow truck driver, right? So he came out and, well, I shouldn't say that. First, his guy came out, right? And this guy, he pulls up and, you know, he's getting ready to hook the car up and everything else. And you notice this other guy, he pulls up and he's in like this small sedan or whatever. And he pulls out and he jumps out. And this dude's like decked out in J's from like head to toe, right? And I'm like, tell me that this guy is not going to go and start hooking up stuff over here on the car. Well, no, he's barking orders at this guy to be able to do this, and everything else. And he comes up and he introduces himself. And he introduces himself. He says, "Hi, my name's Darian." And this guy, he said, "Oh, this is my guy's first day on the job. I just want to make sure he didn't screw stuff up for you." So then he proceeds to tell me that I'm super lucky because he's come across a lot of these other accidents. And as we know, we just lost a brother of ours that wasn't as lucky. They were killed in the accident. And then, they find the car in pieces or the person in pieces. It's a terrible scenario because these are high powered machines that you just, you got to really respect the car. And, he tells me this and he says, again, you're super blessed. You got a second chance here and everything else. And don't pay attention. There's going to be all these people that are going to be saying this and all that. And I'm riding in the truck and we had like a stepbrothers moment. It was like, did we become best friends at this time? And we exchanged numbers and started talking, and we were talking over and over and over. Little did I know that this is one of the largest tow truck owners in the United States. This guy had like a whole garage full of exotic cars. Never knew anything about it. Didn't care nothing about it or whatever. But he kept checking up on me, making sure I was okay. Talked to me about, like life and friendship and business and everything else. And then I got to really knowing him. I was like, man, this guy's a really good guy. He led me to all these other friends and buddies of his in the industry. And that wouldn't have ever happened had I had not crashed that car that day. I would have not known him. We wouldn't have been friends. I would have never maybe ran into him. But God had a plan that day to get us in touch, that he had a mission. And that's the thing. It's not the car that defines a person. It's the person that defines a car. And what I realized out of that whole scenario is how quick things can change. Like all that can be taken away from us. Nothing else matters other than relationships. And that's what this whole thing is meant to do, is it's meant to help you, to surround you. And I also like the charitable aspect. Like there's nothing that's a better feeling to me than like a little kid that gets in the car. Arguably, it's sometimes more the parents and the kids that they get more excited about like sitting in the car and taking a selfie or something. But always with these kids, I'm like, you want to sit in it? You want to turn it on? You want to rev it up? And the thing is that that is the most special thing with what we have going on, is that we have the ability to be able to really make these kids' days, to help them to dream bigger, to never stop. Because, I wasn't supposed to make that, man. I was like, told when I was a kid.
You used to be that guy.
Yeah. I was the pale skin, freckly kid that had like a really hard time making friends. I was nicknamed Dumbo the Pale Boy. And I, was not expected to be much. I was a troublemaker. I mean, I think if you went back and you asked some of the teachers, they'd be like, yeah, I was really surprised that guy turned out the way that he did. And all the crap that I put out there, now the apples didn't fall far from the tree, and now I got two boys that give me hell too. But, ultimately I've never tried to be able to restrict what their dreams and desires are, what they want to do and how they want to do it. Like I said, at the end of the day, somebody tried to stop me in that, and I proved everybody wrong. And there is nothing better than stomping on people's throats and making them taste that what they had said to you, stuffing it down their throat and letting them know that nothing that you said was the way that it turned out for me.
I honestly love when people come at me and they're like, oh, you can't do this, right? Because after I bought the Lambo, I felt comfortable pretty quick, I would say, after that point, and when people don't want you to have that car or something ends up happening, it's like I never get so much motivation. It's just putting gasoline on my fire, and I'm always looking for more of that, as surprising as that sounds.
So I got to know as well too, right? So it's usually the Mustang owners or the Dodge like Chargers, Challengers. It's generally like older style Fox body, usually with the Mustangs. Sometimes you get into, more of like, I would say the 2000 era, the Mustangs. But I get these guys that you have to make eye contact with them. You have to wave back. You have to thumbs up back because these guys will start driving erratically and like be swerving over into your lane and everything just because they want you to recognize them and let them know that, hey, I see you, and they'll wave at you and everything. I can't tell you how many different people have almost wrecked trying to be able to get pictures of the car and everything else like they've never seen that car before. Yes, it makes me feel good that it's, such a shocker. But at the same point in time, I'm like, buddy, you don't need to like put your car into a guardrail because, excuse me, you don't need to put your car into a guardrail because you're trying to be able to take pictures of my car. So, I don't know. I mean, it's a whole different thing. People come up, they'll try talking to you, and to a certain point, it's like you almost wish that people were that friendly and that genuine. It's like it brings something out of people that's totally different, but that could be good or bad. Just depends on the day.
I would say that's the most annoying part of the car itself is the people on the road who just constantly try to race you. They speed up, then they slow down, then they speed up, and then they slow down constantly over and over and over again. I do love like the, adults or kids that have come up to me when I'm at a gas station. They're like, hey, and I'm always like, hey, can you feel free to sit in the car, start it up.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. And I enjoy that. But when people are just trying to race me all day long, and for me, it's the ricers. I used to be the Mustang guy.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
I've had Fox body, Shelby.
Yeah.
I mean, the 5.0s. I used to be that guy.
It's like a graduation process in that as well. It's like with the watches. You start with the Datejust, then you go to the Submariner, then you go maybe to the Presidential, and like you're rising up through the ranks, and then you get into the different types of medals, and keep moving up. But I will tell you that I have a lot of people come up and they'll be like, what do you do for a living? Well, I finally got tired of like making it non-interesting, being like, yeah, I sell insurance. That's why it says Mr. Insurance on the plate on the back, in case you didn't notice. So I started telling them that like I have an OnlyFans, and that I'm the peanut butter prince, and that like I hang out with my dog and let him lick peanut butter off my feet. And people will look at me and they'll be like, look at me like I have a third eye or something. And I'm like, I'm just totally kidding with you and everything. But, this is what I do for a living. Here's one of my cards. If, your kid ever wants to come to a show or something like that, like come on out there and they can sit in the car and, start it up and all that kind of stuff. We're giving them a ride. I've had a lot of people reach out for charitable reasons, which I love doing. It's probably one of the best parts about owning one of that car. And it was when I didn't have it, I'm not going to say that it didn't hurt a little bit, because that was like the time when everybody was like, hey, can you bring it out here? And right. I'm like, yeah, I wrecked it. So I checked that one off the list. Okay. I'm not going to, knock on wood, wreck any more cars or anything like that, especially the supercar thing. I've got that one off the list at this point.
Do you drive pretty careful?
I'd say almost like overly careful nowadays with that, because, I mean, it did crash gracefully, but it was literally like a NASCAR crash. Like, you ever seen the videos of like where the crash cam is in the back? And it was literally like real life. I'm going into the guardrail. I can't stop. I'm feeling the wheels. I'm feeling the impact, and spun around, and, airbags are deploying, and, just it was bad.
So I'm going to get into how me and you got connected, and then we'll get into like what you specifically do, so the audience knows. But, I was, I'd hang out with Parker all the time. He'd have all these cars. He'd try to get me to buy them, but I could never get financed or anything like that. And finally, I started making real money, and I hit him up. I'm like, hey, I want to buy a Huracan. He's like, oh, I got this one, right? And then finally, he was like, I could get funded and everything like that, which was a pain in the butt. Right. Terrible terms, made me put 50% down, that sort of thing.
Oh, man.
So I wanted that car really bad. I was speaking at an event nearby, and I was like, I'm coming to get that car today. So I left the event. I went to go pick up the car, and I'm like, I didn't even think about insurance. I got to get insurance. Right. And it's like, it was a Friday at probably like 5 or 6 p.m.
I remember.
And I'm like, I was like, man, I was telling my buddy, I was like, man, should I tell Parker that I don't really have insurance? And, like, because it was, the car, he technically shouldn't have let me leave with the car right at that moment. And then I told him, he's like, here, call up my buddy, right? And then you were like, it's Friday at 6 p.m. I'm not going to be able to take care of you until next week. And then, I had that 150,000 that you're talking about, but I guess to help me get home, I guess you would be able to tell them better than me. Like, so whenever you buy a car, your insurance on another car should cover a new car. Is that how it is? Or?
You usually have 30 days to be able to, be on your policy. But a car like that, they kind of cap that out most of the time at 150. Again, I don't remember who you had before, and nor does that matter. But we, in many cases, like we had to get on with underwriters and, go through and make sure that, there's another car in play, that's not the daily driver, that you had insurance in place before and stuff. I mean, like there's rules with it that go along with it. But, we found some workarounds in that scenario with that. We would always work, man. Like, I mean, even to this day, like you had commented earlier on my Instagram or whatever. I was saying, my wife used to say, well, you're here, but you're not really here. That's because, I was focused on the goals and the dreams, and I essentially, like my family for many years, sat backseat to that. There's a picture of me somewhere that is me in the hospital. My son is literally being born, and I am sitting there closing a deal off to the side as my son is literally being born. I mean, there's nothing I could do, right? I can't assist in the process, right? Hold a hand or something.
One
like
hand
that.
here, one hand here.
Literally. I was in that chair and I made that sale, but it was like, it was do or die for me, man.
Right.
It was do or die. I had to survive, and I was there to support my family. And without me making those sales, we weren't going to survive. And, but looking back on that, I would not advise that, especially,
it makes a good story.
It does make a good story, especially that I sold it and it was a great deal. But, there's just different things that I've been through with that stuff that, it's like I've always stayed in the working aspect of it. I've always tried to be able to kind of, make sure that I knew to keep my head in the game, and to not get comfortable in any scenario, which is again, that's good and bad. Because, you do stay in tune with your team and everything else. But I've always tried to lead by example. So I would be the guy that would be working at 6 o'clock. I was a guy that also thought that it was good to make calls on, Christmas Eve or Christmas morning or Christmas afternoon. Cause I was like, well, everybody's gonna be sitting around and they're just like hanging out, like chilling. So, why not? And, that was a terrible decision. Like it really was, looking back on those things.
Do you know who Wes Watson is?
I do know that name. Yeah.
So Wes Watson, he's the bald guy, beard, jacked, penitentiary guy.
Yeah.
So we just had our baby at the time, and I was looking to buy some of his coaching programs or a one-on-one with him. I can't remember what it was. And I was DMing him on Instagram. We just got home from the hospital, and I guess he was asking me maybe what my goals were, and I was like, well, I want to get to $1 million a month, and he was like, well, I make $2 million a month. And he tried calling me on Instagram, but I was putting the baby to bed. And it was super late too. And I don't answer. I said, hey man, I'm putting the baby down. We just had a baby, give me a call tomorrow. He's like, nope, see you, bye. I'm not interested. If the guy who was on the other line was making $2 million a month, I would answer that phone during labor, is exactly what he said. And I'm like, man, he's a real douche. But you got to do what you got to do.
I mean, that's some real talk right there on that stuff. But, like I said, I had, I was relentless when it came to, here's a picture of it. So somebody snapped a picture of me.
Oh yeah, you were closing the deal.
Closing the deal.
I can confirm.
So, the thing is, Yeah, I mean, some people they're a little bit more extreme than others, and there's things that are more important than making money, and your family's definitely one of those things that's more important. I wanted to change that because my family environment didn't really remain super close, and I you know I I'm regretful of that. That we didn't remain super close. It's not that I don't love my family. It's just that there was some space that needed to be put in play there. Um, and like I said, I want to be able to change that with my kids and the unit that we have as our immediate family, me and my wife. And I want to make sure that we have that strong backbone that and teach these guys that hard work pays off and everything. Um, my son is crazy about cars, right? Crazy about cars. Literally, his entire wall is full of like Matchbox cars, and he knows the exact ones that are good and the ones that are special and all that. And I hate to say it, but my kid is more of a Lamborghini fan than he is a Ferrari fan, right? And definitely a McLaren fan too, right? So the 720S, he's always saying like, "Dad, why don't you get that?" and everything. And I remember telling my son that I was going to. It's at one point in time I was kind of like where you're at with it. I was just like, man, I'm tired of the attention, like the people that are constantly like talking about me, and I'm just like kind of over it. And I literally called Parker up, and I was like, yeah, I'll be there Thursday, and he was like, we'll see, and I ended up never showing up there, and I didn't end up selling it. But I remember telling my son that we were going to probably end up selling the car. And I mean, this kid had a meltdown, and he was like, how could you do this to us? Because he had positive memories in that car that he was attaching. Yes, what kid doesn't like rolling around in a Ferrari? Like, what kid doesn't love that? But at the same time, he had the attachment to dad and Jack time. He had that attachment to where these were the memories that we shared. This is, again, that's the bigger part of it, of what it brings to your life because of that. And that's the most important thing here, not just that I have a cool car or whatever, because you and I both know it's a pain in the butt to be able to keep up with these things. And I mean, like, oil change is like $1,000, and anytime you go in there, it's like
you're not dealing with hundreds
no,
anymore.
it's
All
next
thousands.
level, right? And then you're not getting any mercy, like rolling it. Like you can't just go down to like Dobbs and get your oil change done or something. Like you're going to the dealership, and that there's going to be no lube, pun intended, right? And that they're going to definitely stick it to you.
It's going to be there for a month too,
Mhm.
just to get something simple done when you can go
Yep.
to Dobbs and get some tires changed real quick.
Exactly. But they don't deal with those kind of things. And again, they're not going to give you any kind of mercy because they're like, well, this dude's driving a Lamborghini. Why in the world would I help him out or cut him a break? I remember there was some tires that I had to change off of the Ferrari, right? I had to change all the tires. They were cupped, and it was gonna void the warranty that probably should be voided anyway. But I ended up going to the dealership, and they're like, "Oh, it's gonna be like $4,000." For these tires and everything. And then it's an additional $2,000 in shop time. I'm like, so this is like $6,000 for freaking tires? You kidding me? And I knew how much the tires cost, which was like, well, I guess for those tires or whatever, it would have been a couple $100 per tire. But I was like, this is ridiculous. So I took it somewhere else. And there's another friend of mine that he owns a business where he deals in the exotic cars, and he did it, and it wasn't $2,000 for, I paid for the cost of those things plus a little bit of shop time, but it was just amazing to see the difference in the pricing and what they charged just because they knew that they could get it. It's no different than like buying a hot dog at the ballpark as opposed to, cooking one on the back porch, but it tastes way better,
Mm-hmm.
tastes way better. I mean, there was a point in time where I was like, you know what? I could go for like a freaking $7 soda at the game or something, you know, like during COVID, like when we all wanted to get out and do stuff, you know?
You know, when I bought my car, Parker put new rims on it,
Hmm.
and I can't remember exactly how much he said, but I think wheel and tire setup was like, I thought he said $5,000 a piece. That's probably off. Maybe I read it wrong. I
Is
don't
it like
know.
a 3-piece rim?
I don't know. It's out there so you can
Yeah.
see. Maybe it's probably a lot less, but I probably misread him. But still, you look at my Range Rover, every single rim is curbed. You know, it's got the curb rash on it because I let my girlfriend drive the car, and I'll be like, "You,
I have no
what did you
comment
just
on
do?
that or
Yeah,
whatever,
what did you
right?
just do?" So I'm so careful now because it's just like I'll be 5 feet off the curb because I mean that's the last thing I want to deal with.
That is literally why I started putting black rims on the vehicles because they were easier to be able to either hide the curb rash
Got to get the
or,
Sharpie.
yeah, or to be able to, you know, like be able to touch it up. They could grind it down. They could just take the paint, you know, do those things. And I started doing the wheels and tires packages because, you know, like I said, I mean, I have another driver in the house that's also a Kirby. And, you know, that's,
Can't stay away from them.
yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the reason why, again, that you'll see most of the rims that are on the cars, they're usually black because, you know, it's just easier to take care of things.
So I want to get into the social media talk
Yeah.
since, you know, it seems like in the past couple of months you've really picked up on posting on social media. You started your own podcast as well.
Mhm.
Tell me what kind of why you got bigger, why you maybe had you know, focused more on social media and how the podcast is going as well.
So I had dealt with where, you know, the marketing companies that I was working together with, there was a lot of overpromise, underdeliver. And, you know, I was like, I wanted to really change this. But I would say the most impactful thing that had that come to me, it was kind of in unison with that, right? So sat down, like me and my wife, we go to the pastor and, you know, we do like marital sort of planning and, you know, we coaching for marriage and all that kind of stuff, you know, to try to be able to stay on the same page with values and all that kind of thing. And I remember the pastor saying something to me that really, really stuck. He said, if you took everything away, if you strip down Steve down to the core, down to the studs, who is that guy? And somehow out of that, like I generated this Mr. Insurance guy, right? Because I used to be known as like, you know, Mr. Insurance when I was doing a lot of like, I was a debit agent back in the day. So I would like go to people's houses and collect premium for life insurance and then like try and go sell their relatives and friends and everything off of that. And it just kind of stuck. And next thing I know, you know, I started ramping it up. And then it kind of turned into like, who is your Mr. Insurance? Like, who is the Mr. Insurance in you? You know, is this you, Mr. Junk Removal? You know, is it whatever that nickname is, if you will, right? Who is that person that is? And I had this desire to really get out there and to help people. And I felt like it was more of a mission for me to do that. And it really reset me in my thinking because, to be honest with you, I was kind of burnt out. You get to a certain point, like I enjoy the build more than anything, but like when we're there, now this thing is running smoothly. It's like I need to create some havoc here because, you know, it's just not exciting for me anymore. I want to be able to continue to keep building stuff. Well, through my own experiences, and really COVID was a big eye opener for me because overnight I lost when COVID hit. We were just doing high risk auto, and I'm not talking about the high risk being the like exotic cars or anything like that. I'm talking about that people that if you did not hold their hand to the fire, that they weren't going to do what was right. And this is also the time where DMVs were closed. This is the time where courts were closed. You know, police weren't pulling people over because COVID was like the plague at that time. I even think they had like a TikTok out there or something of like how to be able to get out of a ticket. Like you stuck something down in your window of like, you better have a warrant. I have COVID.
Yeah.
Don't die, you know. And they had to let them go. And during that time, like I said, overnight, we lost 70% of our business. And I'm like, I went to the Ozarks. I got out on my boat because in the Ozarks, like COVID didn't exist out there. There's somewhere out there on like a CNN rerun where they have a helicopter that's flying.
Backwater jacks.
Backwater jacks.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was saying, right? So there's somewhere out there that they have video footage and my boat is right there in the front and they're like, look at this. This is COVID soup. And I'm like, man, if you knew anything about the Ozarks, there is so much alcohol that is being ingested right now. There is nothing, any kind of virus could live under the circumstances. These people have been drinking since like 9 o'clock this morning, and none of them have left the pool, by the way.
Yeah, there's 500 people in the pool, all 5 inches away from each other.
Right.
Do you know who the Nelk boys are?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure they were there.
Yeah.
So I think it just drew in so many more people.
So I was out there, but I actually was coving out with a couple of buddies, and we pull into the cove, and it's Frankie and Louie's out there, which I love that restaurant. But over to the side there, they have an RV park, and I'm looking around at some of my friends and their boats, and they're well off, right? I was looking around, seeing my surroundings, and I'm like, you know what? They're not really affected by this. I'm looking in the RV park. People are living it up, driving around on ATVs, UTVs, golf carts, things like that. And I'm like, it just hit me. I'm like, there's kind of a different high risk scenario here. So I got back to work in creating the companies that we could be able to work through to be able to make this happen. And I developed a platform, and then I threw a coaching spin on this as well too. My ultimate end all be all goal is to be able to be a coach for these guys. There's so much content that is put out there that, you know, there's only so much hype that you can ingest and like not do something with. And then I wanted to show people as agents, like where we could have you come in, we could show you the way and not just try and hype you up over it. Like we literally give you all the tools that you need to be successful. And then social media was a big part of that. And trying to be able to not only to attract people in there, but to try to be able to speak to people and let them know that like, hey, like I feel like what you're going through right now. And I've been through some stuff here too. And the market changed. So we changed with the market. We had to adapt. We had to figure out a way to get over it. And we had to be able to figure out how to be able to continue to thrive. That part of the business took off like wildfire. And it led us to so many different things now that like we're insuring JDM cars and mini trucks and like Hummer, like AM General Hummers. And
so how are you making these, you know, connections to be able to get them as clients? Is it car shows? Are you paid traffic?
So I actually went to the source because, you know, a lot of people, they may or may not know about like the Montana LLC thing, right? And so if you start a corporation out of Montana, that it allows for you to be able to create a shell corporation, and that you don't have to pay sales taxes or personal property taxes. Now you do pay state fees and things, and then you pay what they call a Ferrari tax, which is anything over $150,000, and you just pay this amount. But if you got a person that they were supposed to pay maybe on their sales taxes, let's say $30,000, and then you are only going to have to pay $1,400. Well, I mean,
it's a no-brainer.
It's not like you're forcing people to have to do things, and it's legal. It's within the boundary lines. You know, I'm sure there's some people that are going to say, well, that's tax evasion or whatever, but you are not evading anything. You are there's a big difference between tax evasion and tax avoidance.
Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Right. You have figured out how to unlock the code. You figured out a way to be able to to find your way around the tax system. And that's, if you look at very wealthy people like Donald Trump, for instance, he has figured out the tax code. I think didn't he like bury his ex-wife or something on a golf course or something because
I think I heard about
it
that.
could no longer be considered like taxable land or anything or something because now it's a grave site or something like that. So he like buried her on the freaking 19th hole or something. So
Yeah.
I don't know, but my point is with it is that I started looking at these companies that provided this service, and I just did the old school thing. I picked up the phone and I called and I generated a relationship, and I flew out to see these guys and I shook hands and we went out to lunch, and I said, give me a chance. Give me a chance to prove you wrong. And, you know, a couple years later, we got thousands of referrals that comes through, all because I got on the phone, I went and I hustled, and I didn't just wait for the business to fall in my lap. And now everybody partakes in that. But, you know, like I said, the social media and stepping that up has been extremely beneficial. The podcast is really about kind of just talking with people about business and life in general, you know, about finding out a little bit more about them. But, you know, there's usually a connection in entrepreneurs to where it's like when you go, why do you go to these masterminds and seminars and things like that? It's for the contacts that go there. And it's the same type of deal here is you're making that contact and, you know, like hopefully, I mean, who knows? Like maybe I'm, you know, in the junk business or something like that, you know, in a month or something, or I'm having you come to my podcast or have you come to an event that I'm hosting. Like we want to do this. I want to do this yacht party.
Yeah. Yacht mastermind. I've been to plenty of them.
Yeah. So I want to do one of these things, but I actually want to like show these guys how to do it. So one of my favorite influencers is Grant Cardone. And one of the reasons why I like him so much is because he actually shows you strategy of how to be able to implement what he's talking to you about. Yes, is he going to throw in a little bit of humor and a little bit of hype and everything? Absolutely. But what he's really doing is he's showing you how to be able to follow his blueprint to be able to get from point A to point B, to be able to change your life and to work together with people on that. I'm wanting to kind of do that in the insurance space. I'm also wanting to be able to get into a marketing spin because one of the pieces of my insurance company is I have a separate marketing company, and that ultimately supports what my insurance company does. And again, there's tax reasons for this stuff. But I have where that marketing company, I want to start opening that up to the guys that work together with us to say, I have tried, true, and tested resources here for you to be able to, you know, latch onto that. I know that these guys are legitimate because I've used them, I've used their services, and I can vouch that what they tell you is exactly what they're going to deliver. There's been all too many times where people will see the flashy cars. They'll see, you know, the things that we put out online, and it just opens me up to being taken advantage of. I mean, I talked about the Christmas lights, right? And the guy that came out from the company that I had at my previous house, I had him come out, and they're on the front of the house. There wasn't really that much more square footage on the front of the house, maybe like, you know, 1,000 feet or something like that, right? The person quoted me like $10,000 or something like that, compared to like my previous house was like $400 or $300, whatever it was. And I'm like, how did we jump from this? This isn't that much more square footage and everything else. And they're like, well, you know, like we're going to put fancy new bulbs in. We're going to do this. And I'm like, no, that's not going to happen.
You saw the house. You saw the cars.
You saw
now
everything.
You're trying to stick it to me.
Right.
You know, I live in a court, and I see these door-to-door salesmen. You know, they pull up, right? They park in the court. I usually work in the garage. You know, we got a nice setup in there. The Lambo's always sitting there.
Yeah.
And they always pull up in the court, and there'll be people like staring, you know, in the garage. And I'm like, This is a little sketchy. You know, who is this? And then what do you know? It's a solar salesman. It's
Yeah.
a, you know, aeration salesman, and they
Right.
pick my house just because the Lambo's in the garage, and they think that they can stick it to me every single time. Where I almost like wish that my car was parked elsewhere,
Yeah.
because I'd rather people in the neighborhood not know that I own the car. But there's just so many marketing advantages to it. So if social media wasn't in play, I probably wouldn't want many people to know that I had it.
It's easy to feel that way when you have nice things and you have people that are coming at you sideways. And I'll tell you that, you know, like you just got to kind of keep on course, keep doing what you're doing. And nobody's really going to get on board with you with that. Those type of people, they're going to be hating all the way, you know, their whole life. And the people that you need to surround yourself with, the guys that are going to get you to that next level, your true friends, your true partners in business, those are the guys that are going to be, again, pushing you and, you know, making you level up and not settling for just being ordinary. Those are the kind of guys that I hang out with now. And I mean, there's a lot of people that they'll say, you know, you've changed. And you're right. I did.
For the better.
For the
Look where you
better.
are now.
Right.
Look where they are.
You know, if a person isn't happy for you now, they're not going to be happy for you, you know, when you're really doing things. Imagine when you got like 10 Lamborghinis in the garage, because I already know you and you're going to have that stuff because you want to be able to push yourself to the highest level. You need to be around people that are like you and surround yourself with positive, you know, like entrepreneur minded people to be able to push you to that next level. And I'll tell you, you know, like it took me a minute to figure that out because again, you know, it was back to like, you're almost being bullied, for having nice stuff. You know, it's like, well, I bet that can't haul that much junk in it, can it? Or something, you know, and, you know, people start hating on you and that kind of thing. And, you know, there's also this thing specifically with like your friends and your family. It's called guilt shaming, right? Must be nice, you know. I'm over here struggling, but you know, keep wiping your Lamborghini down or something. And you know, what do you want from me?
I posted a video and it's going, you know, it's got probably 100,000 views right now. And it's, here's 3 things I don't like about my Lamborghini, right? I made the video because people do that and it gets a lot of views. I make the video, it's got about 100,000 views. Yeah. You should see the comments just destroying me. Wow, your life must be terrible. This is definitely not a car guy. You know, it's just so funny scrolling through there. There's literally not one positive comment, even though it was more, you know, just for views type of video. But it worked out well for me.
You know what? There's a saying that there's no publicity that's bad publicity. Mm-hmm. You know, it's all about how you spin it, how you change it, and how you use it. And there's always going to be ankle biters, mosquitoes, and insects that are crawling all over your legs trying to get a bite at you and stuff. And really, the thing is that, again, those people are never going to reach their full potential because they don't want to reach their full potential, you know? And, you know, don't let those people derail you on where you're trying to be able to go, because ultimately, if you let it, people will do that. They'll bring you down to that level. They'll bring you to where you feel like it's wrong of you to be successful. I mean, I can remember, you know, I hate to say this with my family. I mean, I can remember to where, you know, my family felt a real entitlement of what I had going on. And these are the same people that told me that like I should just go get a 9-to-5 job. I should work at Starbucks because they had good benefits and I could work there part-time if I even wanted to, and quit living this fantasy out of trying to make all these millions of dollars. Like, you know, that's not, I don't know what I taught you, but that's not what it was. These are principles that ultimately were engraved into me that I decided to break the mold. And I've tried to instill into my kids that you can have anything that you set your mind to, that you push to. You know, my kids, they won't come to me anymore and be like, hey, can I have this amount of money or whatever? I would say every once in a while my daughter does, but most of the time they come to me, how can I earn this money so that I can go get this? And, you know, like they understand that like you have to work to get where you're at. It doesn't just happen. Even though it's like Shaq says, like, I got money, you don't. I'm wealthy, you're not. So I don't have to give you anything. I give you things because I want to help you. I want to help you to have an advancement in life. We talk about, so another reason with the property and wanting to be able to take that property that's in Missouri and be able to take that equity and be able to move it down south is because my daughter wants to go to school in Florida, and in-state tuition is a real thing. And the other thing is here too is I want to be able to get her into a multifamily scenario where she can rent out all the units and she can live off of the investment that she's made with us. And I want to try and set her up into that mindset of being the landlord instead of the tenant, and try to be able to show her that, hey, if you do these things, like you're going to be the one that comes out on top here.
Right. That's amazing. I actually love that you're doing that, and I was, I learned the hard way whenever I got my first job, and then, then I moved out, and then I had a baby, and it was just like, I got to go put the work in. I got to be the number one provider, and I wish I learned that early on that, things just don't come to you. You got to go get them.
Well, even like, so I caught a lot of flack when my daughter turned 16. I got her a new Mercedes. I mean, holy cow, the comments that I got, like from parents, what are you thinking? How in the world are you going to be so irresponsible, like, to get your kid this new Mercedes? Like, and I was like, you didn't know the arrangement that we had. The arrangement is that you get good grades, you start advancing through here, you be a leader and an example to your peers, you be a good kid. I don't expect to be perfect, but, don't parade around the town, and the thing is that there's no way that my kid isn't going to get a scholarship, right? So how much does that save to me in the long run of things with that car? And they don't know what I pay for that car. I have connections in other, like, friends of mine that are in the car business, and I worked out a deal. I got a great deal on that car, right? You don't know how much I paid, and nor is it anybody's business. But I took all kinds of criticism for making sure that I took care of my kid and that we had an arrangement. I said, if you do this, 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 and this, you will have the kind of car that you want. She could have told me that she wanted a Corvette. I would have bought her a Vet. The thing is, not a Lamborghini, but like maybe a Corvette or, Mustang or something like that. But the thing is that there was an arrangement. There was to be able to push her to get to her goal, right? So she is an honor roll student. This girl is in her junior year. She's pretty much going to be able to graduate in the first semester, and she's going to already be 2 years into college, maybe 3 years into college by the time that she gets there. So again, how much did I save? What's college costs these days? What, $30,000 a year or something to go to a private college? I mean, who knows on that? I was just looking at colleges the other day and seeing, like, University of Miami was like $200,000 for 4 years worth of college and stuff. It's ridiculous. And it's a business. But I told her, I said, if you own that property, what you can do is you can generate the revenue to not only to pay for your room and board with this, but everybody else will have to pay you that. And you can use that to pay for your tuition, and you can use it as a write-off to be able to help you with your tax scenario with that. And you'll basically pay for all your schooling. And I want to be involved in showing her that process and helping her to get to that next level. And that's what we need to be doing with our kids, man. It's not telling them how restricted that they need to be. We need to be showing our kids how to get to that next level and helping them, push them into investments. Like, I had her as soon as I could put her onto a credit card. We had her on all of our credit cards. This girl's going to have an 800 plus credit score. She'll probably have better credit than I do, and she'll have that because I did things that nobody did for me, and I learned it the hard way. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm like spoiling my kid. It means that I'm educating my kid how to be able to do it the way that I had to learn. I'm just guiding them around the potholes in the road.
It's amazing, man.
Yeah.
What's the best advice that you could give to somebody who feels stuck right now, who really wants to level up, maybe get, just live a better life, maybe get some of those fancy things like watches or cars or that sort of thing?
I would say just put yourself on a schedule and keep getting up every day, no matter how hard or tough that it becomes. Keep finding ways to get up every single day. Keep motivating yourself to keep pushing along and expect more out of yourself. Set goals and, have due dates on your goals, and don't miss the due dates on your goals. And you want to have assets, not liabilities. So like if, the cars, if they're not making you any money, you shouldn't have them. I wouldn't have these cars if it wasn't bringing something to the table with it to outweigh what I'm expensing out. I wouldn't have those things if they weren't making me money. Put your money into things that are going to make you money. That's what's the most impressive. What does your real estate look like? What's that portfolio look like?
Right. I heard something very interesting the other day that I felt like changed my perspective. And Eric Spofford said it, if you know who that is. Okay. He said, do you either want a pile of money or you want a river of money?
Yeah.
I want the river.
Right. Because it's going to constantly keep coming in. And, a true, really successful business is one that runs itself, that you can step away from, and there's revenue that's coming along. So as we've been sitting here, I have sales that are coming through on my phone that just keep going on and on and on and on and on and on and on, and I'm still going.
I saw those notifications.
So while we've been sitting here, I have revenue that's coming through because we've generated a machine that is going to print money for us. And these are things that, again, you as an entrepreneur, you want to be in a business that you're going to fill a need and you're going to help people out, and your money will come no matter how hard if you work hard at something, money's going to work. There's never a get rich quick scenario that's out there. I was at one point in time filling Coinstar to be able to pay my bills, to pay payroll and things. I still have like PTSD from that stupid machine because, it was like the loudest machine that, I'd walk in there and I'd be like the Unabomber, and I'd have like sunglasses on when I would walk into this place because I was embarrassed. But, these are the hurdles that you have to overcome to be able to get to where you're at. It does not happen overnight. And the guys that are looking for the get rich quick stuff, it doesn't happen.
Out there.
It's not out there.
Nothing's easy.
You're going to have to pay your dues. You're going to have to, it's going to be hard, and it's going to break you down, and you're going to have to keep getting up. You might have broken kneecaps and everything else. You're going to have to still figure out how to keep getting back up. And that's what sets apart the people that make it and the ones that don't, is they were able to survive through the difficulties, the war that they were put through.
Awesome, man. Just like COVID, just like you getting through COVID.
Yeah.
So, I really appreciate you hopping on, man. Yeah. Where can everybody find you?
If you want to, my Instagram is Mr. Insurance Steve. You go on there, check it out, give it a follow. Try and put out some exciting content out on there. I'll have you come on my podcast as well. I think you know where it's at. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all. My handles are pretty much at Mr. Insurance Steve. Just again, check it out and see what we got to offer.
Awesome. Keep on crushing it, man.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see you guys on the next one.